I'm beginning my summative assessment on educational psychology that we did this semester. I found it particularly interesting. What I enjoyed is, and what I didn't understand was the learning difficulties that children presented with, and it could come from many parts of the things that are happening in their lives and the people who are around them. The learning domains I wanted to start with of the cognitive. These are where children present problems. It refers to the thinking and making sense of the world around them. Affective refers to feelings, emotions, and attitudes that the child has, and your psychomotor refers to movement and responses and reflexes. So the psychomotor is the manual and physical skills, the cognitive is the mental skills and knowledge, and the affective is attitude and self. If you have a look at this little comic I'll put at the bottom, and it says, how do I do things? And then it uses the three domains, the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor. And within the child developmental domains, it affects your language literacy, social, emotional, physical well-being, approaches to learning, your creative arts, your sciences, and your mathematics. So this is the child as a whole and how the child relates to or has barriers to learning in the classroom. The next slide that I have is the cognitive domain. It's the knowledge and the ability to remember and recall. So when a child is sitting in a classroom, they are having to listen and they have to recall the information that has been given to them. The comprehension is the understanding of that information. Application is applying their knowledge on how to solve a problem. Analysis is explaining how and why. Synthesis is using what they have learned and applying it to different situations with that same information that they have. Evaluation is using the best method in which to solve a problem. So if there are lots of methods in which to approach a problem, the child has to be able to choose which one they think will give them the best results to what they have. Affective domain, this is emotions, feelings, and attitude. A lot of children who come from abusive households or have experienced trauma or anything like that present with behavioral problems. And this also goes to their feelings and emotions and their attitude of what they present at school. So the value set is it's a higher emotion set that you have. It's to revise, to require, and to be rated high in value. So the children can emotionally rate information of what they rate as the highest or the most important. The organization is to discuss and formulate and to examine information and feelings and emotions. Valuing is to increase it, to support to the debate in regard to feelings and emotions, and responding is to comply or to follow or commend behavior, emotions, and attitude. And receiving is to differentiate. So you are given the knowledge of how to react to information. So you will receive information by listening. You will respond to it by discussing. You will valuing is placing it in how can I say, tiers of importance or pyramid of importance. Organizations, you prioritizing. The children have to be able to prioritize tasks and thoughts and feelings as to which ones are the most important. The characterization is to revise, label, and manage levels of importance. The next slide that we're going to go on to is educational psychology and educational psychologists. I've given two quotes there. One was from Skinner. Educational psychology is the branch of psychology which deals with teaching and learning. And the next one is educational psychology, which describes, explains the learning experiences of an individual from birth through to old age. If you can have a look here, I've given a drawing of what children are supposed to have developed or how can I say, to have achieved a certain level within their stages of their learning stages as they are children. So you can see I've done it from 2 years and they scribble at the first stage, 3 to 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, and 10 years. So it will be our intermediate phase, which will be the older age groups. The barriers to learning. So improving classroom and school effectiveness, and this is what a psychologist would be able to help with. It's teachers' behavior, their planning, their management, the children's behavior, which the psychologists will already be addressing. So the ultimate goal of an educational psychologist and teachers and a school at home and the management of the school is to ensure that the children reaches the best level of achievement that is applicable to that particular child. So they tackle the problems encountered by young people in education. So it's learning difficulties, social or emotional problems. They enable teachers to become more aware of the factors affecting teaching and learning. They support parents' careers and understand the child development to enable them to support their children. They write reports about children for allocation of special educational places or as part of court proceedings or children's panels. Some educational psychologists have areas of special interest, for example, children in care. It would be children. Some people will specialize in fetal alcohol syndrome, which I find particularly fascinating. I never realized that children, I knew that they would be affected physically from birth, but I never knew that it would present long-term problems where you would have behavioral problems and learning barriers to learning or disabilities. If we go on to the next slide, the learning and support of an educational psychologist. So the psychologist will provide support to learning or learning support for that child to assist them in overcoming or managing their barriers to learning. So educational psychologists aim to understand how children learn and find ways to improve learning outcomes pertaining to that individual child. Educational psychologists work with children and teenagers to identify strengths and weaknesses, to help them to tap into their existing resources, the skills that they have, and build on those strategies to overcome challenges and improve importance. That information I took from the Melbourne Child Psychology unit, and it was written by Jessica Leviton. I just thought it was particularly pertinent. Educational psychologists are concerned with children's learning and development. They use their specialist skills in psychological and educational assessment techniques to help those having difficulties in learning, behavior, or social adjustment. Educational psychologists provide guidance for teachers in how to assist and accommodate children who have learning barriers or barriers to learning. A lot of children are taken out of class in a particular subject, if not your core subjects, but it could be your allos or your cultural periods or arts or music, and they will go to the educational psychologist, the child will go, and then they will be given tools, and the psychologist will help them to develop skills and to overcome their barriers to learning, to assist them to achieve the best results that they possibly can in that year. The next thing that I did on the slide is I actually took individual, I know there are many problems that present and can add to learning disabilities, or I don't want to even say that, I want to say barriers to learning. So I just took the ones that I thought were particularly fascinating. ADD, ADHD. I think I was probably ADHD as a child, and that was many years ago in the 70s. And we were all just labeled as children that used to stare out the window and daydream, and we couldn't concentrate, and it was being naughty. And today it's been identified, and children with ADD, ADHD are assisted and they're helped, or they might be medicated to help them to concentrate in class and learn to the best of their ability. Another thing that can affect a child's learning is emotional trauma. The next one is autism. Dyslexia. There are many children that suffer from dyslexia. They have tools now that some children in my class use reading pens. So they use these pens to scan over, if they're writing exams, over what has been written, and then it's audially transmitted, and they can hear a voice telling them what it is that they're reading. That helps them overcome some of their problems or struggles that they might have. as far as learning goes. Another one I found particularly interesting was fetal alcohol syndrome, and that's what I was talking about before. I never knew that children will also physically present the fetal alcohol syndrome look, as it were. Autism is the one that is the next picture. I have a child in my class who's autistic. He's not mildly autistic, but he's not badly autistic either, and it's learning to deal with him and how to approach him that I learned from our school's child psychologist and educational psychologist. The last one that I've got here is physical abuse. I'm sure it presents many, many emotional problems as a whole for children and will definitely affect how they learn at school. The summary, what I've done here is psychology versus educational psychology. And psychology is a broad, you can go into various different fields of psychology, but educational psychology specializes in education and the acquisition of information by humans. And it emphasizes more on understanding and improvement of teaching and learning in formal educational settings. It investigates how students learn and how teachers can help them to learn effectively, especially with regard to students with learning difficulties. Concerns overcoming learning and cognitive difficulties in students, as well as in preparing teachers for more effective education. I think it's vitally important that educational psychologists work with the teachers at whichever particular school they are at to help and assist so that they can get the best out of those children that need the help. I just finished off here because I thought it was very nice with the different universities that offer educational psychology, that you can do your B.Ed honours in educational psychology and you can specialise. There are many other universities that do it, but these are just ones that I wanted to finish off because I think they have pretty nice degrees that they offer. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.